Thanks for watching this month's episode of Forage Focus. On today's episode, we'll be talking about how to reseed pastures this fall. I have multiple guests with me for the episode this month. We have
Dave Schott from Noble Water Conservation District. I'm the administrator and wildlife forestry specialist and take care with the rental equipment program here at the Noble Soil and Water Office.
and
I'm Jessie Radcliff. I also work for the Noble Soil and Water Conservation District. I'm the Agriculture and Natural Resources Technician.
I'm Christine Gelley, Extension Educator in Noble County for OSU Extension.
So one question we get asked is why would we even seed forages in the fall? There's actually a lot of reasons. Some of it's just practicality. In the spring of the year, we're seeding other things. We're seeding our common commercial crops, the corn, spelt, soybeans, you name it. That's the time that we're really hitting the fields hard. So a lot of times forages, pasture, those things, that's just second thought, second nature. So you don't run to see those things anyways. And a lot of times it's just too wet. So in the fall of the year, things are generally slower, things are generally drier, and you have a better opportunity to really put the work in to get a good seeding. Another reason that we really like fall seeding is because of weed competition. Generally those fall weeds are easier to control. You can get a better establishment with less competition. Alright, there are a couple different ways to do seedings. There are conventional tillage methods. There are also no-till methods. It depends on your operation, the equipment that you have, and what you want to do in the future that really determines that. The conventional tillage methods have a better seed to soil contact and better weed control from the get-go and establishment, but also can lead to some soil erosion and soil loss if there's an unfortunate rain event right after you've seeded and before the forage is established. In no-till planting, you have better nutrient locking in and more water available to your forages, but it's a little bit more of an expensive method sometimes because you are dealing with such a thick patch of sometimes undesirable leaves, weeds, and forages already there that you're kind of having to deal with. One of the reasons that no-till can sometimes be a challenge is because of the residual thatch that's still on the ground from brush hogging or that kind of thing. Whenever you consider herbicides, one thing to consider is residuals left into the ground and what that might do to a new seeding. There are some broadleaf herbicides that have a residual of sometimes even up to 18 months. If that's the case and you're seeding a grass and you'd like legumes and broadleaves in later, you can always frost seed those.
I'm standing here next to this is our 706 no-till drill that we got a couple of years ago through some grant funding through the National Wild Turkey Federation, Ohio State Chapter, and the Whitetails Unlimited organization. And along with Noble Soil and Water, we was able to purchase this new drill. And actually what makes this drill a little different than your average drill is it has a warm season grass box on it. It has more for your fluffier type seeds. I'm just basically going to cover some of the do's and don'ts of what I do when I take it and deliver it. We rent this out to landowners if you have the right tractor to pull it. But I'll deliver it, help them set it up, calibrate it, get you started, make sure your depth's all right. I'm going to show you that here today on how to adjust your depth and stuff like that. But basically give you a crash course like I do with landowners. Don't ever back up with this in the down position. If you do that, you're going to have a lot of time on your hands unplugging the dirt between the discs. So the straighter you can make your rows, you can turn with this machine, gradual turns. It's not meant to make 90-degree turns. So the straighter you keep your rows, the better your stand's going to be. You're going to, because the closing wheels have to follow in behind your trenches in order to close that trench shut. So what we have here is basically, we got dry boxes here. This is for your main seed box, which is located here in the front. This drive type controls your speed of your actual seed meter. Then there's another box over there. That's for your native seedgrass. So you have two different ones. I get a lot of people when they get started or whatever, hey, this thing's not planting. Well, all the drills, they all have a hub here where you turn this knob here on this hub. That engages your chains to make your seeder actually work. So you actually, you put it in when you're planting, and then you have it out in transport. I get a lot of calls when people saying, well, the drill won't go down. Well, the transport bracket's still in there, so they have to hook up their hydraulics, raise the drill, pull these brackets, pull this pin and pull this red bracket out, and basically you hang it up here and put your pin back in, and then it keeps it in a safe place so you don't throw it on the ground and lose it. So that's your transport bracket. Now, when you hook up to the drill, you want to hook your tractor up to your draw blower, and when this drill is setting down behind your tractor, this toolbar needs to be level. You got to have this machine level. If your draw blower is real low and you set this drill down and the tongue is down and the drill's up like this, you're not running true, you're not running level, and that will cause your seed to be deep because you're running that drill. Now if it's, actually shallow, I should say shallow, because you're running up higher, you're pushing this down and raising that up. It's causing it to go shallow. Now if you go get a tractor and you hook it up and the tongue's way up here and the drill's riding lowrider type style, then you're going to be too deep. So this has to be level. So when you hook it up to the tractor, and just don't set it down, drive it forward a little bit, because those discs have to get settled down into the ground. And once it gets settled into the ground and you drove 10 feet and you look at it and this toolbar is level, this measurement should be like between 15 and 16 inches off the ground. So you need to have this perfectly level before you start planting. All right, now we get a lot of people, we get our drill and it's a rental equipment. We don't know what the last guy did. We don't know whether he cleaned it. He should have cleaned it out. If he's not, he's going to get a cleaning fee from us. But the first thing you want to do, and even if the drill is clean, is get an air compressor. And the air compressor and the shop vac are your friend. The shop vac being that gets all your seed out that's left over when you're done. If you have any extra, it sucks it out, put it in the bag and use it for another time, or go back in and fill in some spots where it didn't come up as nice. But the first thing you want to do is run an air compressor through these hoses. Setting here next to the woods like this, there's less likely chances of a mouse getting up in there, but spiders, cobwebs. I've seen these smaller tubes where a spider gets up in there and puts a nest, and it'll plug that seed tube. So run an air compressor down through and up through the hoses, and get all that blown out and get all that foreign debris that might be stuck in there from the previous user or from a critter that came along. So make sure you blow out those hoses before you even start using them. On the drill, we have our manuals in here, our seed charts in this box. And for example, like if we was to plant soybeans, this drill type is a 7.5 inch spacing, and we want to say plant 60 pounds of beans to the acre. So what we need to do is we need to pay attention to the 7.5 inch rows. And if you look, you got drive type 1, 2, 3, and 4. That was referring back to our drive type on our box here. The idea with beans is you want to make the gap as narrow as possible so you get that singulation of soybeans coming out, so you don't have a glob of beans coming out. So what we're shooting for is a faster drive type. And say we were wanting to put, we'll use 55.6, that's close to 60. 7.5 inch spacing, 55.6, drive type 4, and we'll go up the chart, and it's setting 15. So what we do is we go up here, and we loosen the little wing nut. There we go. And when I always set this, say we want to set it, I think it was setting 15, is always zero it back, and then bring it to the 15. And right there's 15. And now we got, in the actual seed cup itself, we have a narrower gap opening that's going to actually singulate those beans. And we're on drive type 4, so that's the fastest drive type. It's going 4 times faster than it normally would go. So and you tighten your wing nut back up, and you're ready to plant beans. Now, when we move back here, you know, when it comes to depth is a big thing, seeding depth, and that's where a lot of failures occur. Get guys that'll plant what didn't come up, or it came up in the beginning. You can see where I started, but then it just disappears. Well, what has happened is you got the seed too deep, and that's a lot of your failure. Is seeds are too deep in the ground. Rule of thumb, general rule of thumb that I tell landowners is twice the diameter of the seed. So, you know, you take a wheat seed and you take a soybean seed and you stack two of them on top of each other. You don't really want to go any deeper than that. Soybeans, now granted, you plant later in the planting season, you want to get down there where that moisture's at, you do have to plant a little bit deeper. So, but how you adjust all this in your depth, and especially on the newer drill, and what makes it nice is your closing wheels. You actually have these T-handles on every disc, so this adjusts your depth. So you can see the wheel only comes up, and you've got this spacer in here. So if you move it up closer to the front in the sets of holes, it doesn't go up as high. You move it back, see how much higher it goes? So you're going to go deeper. So you adjust that, your seeding depth, by your notches here. Each set of holes is 1/4 of an inch. Toward the front, it's 1/4 inch shallower. Each set of holes back is 1/4 inch deeper. Now what happens too is in no-till situations where we're actually planting in no-till is we'll run this drill 50 yards or so, and we'll get out and we'll look and we'll check seed depth, and you'll notice you'll come back behind and you will not see no seed. You might see seed on top of the ground in this row and this row over here. What causes that? Tractor tire pressure. So you now have to adjust this so it goes deeper, because your tractor is actually ahead of the machine pressing the soil down, allowing those beans to be closer to the surface. So now we have to make an adjustment. Just say on this one, sometimes guys' tires fall within the outsides of the planter. If that happens, that's great, you know. But sometimes these smaller tractors, the tire will fall on this outer one or the outer two, and we have to make those adjustments accordingly. So, you know, so planting depth is a big thing, and you do that adjustment with your firming wheels, your closing wheels. Now I want to tell people too, like, to avoid like plugging. I get guys that want to, when they go to the field and they start planting, they'll stop and they drop that drill and go. The problems you can run into with that is if you stop like that and you drop it, dirt can actually get up between the disc and actually plug where your seed's going to come out. So I always tell guys, you know, when you're going into the field and you get set up where you want to start, always back up a little bit with the drill up, not in the down position, and start in motion and go in motion. And as you go, drop and lower the drill into the soil. And then when you come out of the field and you're coming out, is always raise it moving out of the field too. So that way you don't run any risk. You don't run any risk when you get to the end and you stop and you raise it. You're probably not going to plug, but when you start and you drop it, you've got more chances to plug. Now, I get some guys, you know, we're planting, it's been dry, and they're like, it's not going deep enough. Well, we've made all the adjustments, we've gone as deep as we can get, and it needs to be deeper. Well, we can't. We got to wait on moisture. So we got to wait on that ground, maybe a rain. You know, guys will say, well, what do we do? I can't get any deeper. Well, we got to wait until it rains, and we'll be able to get that seed deeper. So sometimes you got to wait on Mother Nature. You know, well, I only took this day off to get my seeding done. Well, wait until the next time it rains and then take a vacation day. So, you know, there's times where it is too dry and it will not go deep enough. I was telling you earlier about this different seed boxes, and what makes this drill different than a normal drill is this is your regular grain box. This is what you run oats and wheat and soybeans and smaller grains. This is more for fluffy seed like brome grass, warm season grasses, Indian grass, big blue stem. People say, well, I'll put switchgrass. No, on back here, if you look at the smaller box, switchgrass is a smaller type, Timothy type size seed. It can go in this rear box here. So I always tell guys, try to keep these pasture mixes and stuff. It's hard to regulate pounds per acre. You got smaller seeds and larger seeds, and the smaller seeds want to get to the bottom first. And so try to keep your seeds separate, because if you're doing say you're doing a haymaker of brome, orchard grass, and timothy, we can put the timothy in the rear box and regulate our pounds per acre. We can put our brome in the native grass box and regulate our pounds per acre. And we can put our orchard grass in the front and regulate our pounds per acre. And all have it, and we can do that by calibration.
When any of us talk to producers about fall seedings, a lot of times we hear the horror stories and the reasons that they don't work. A lot of times what we found, there are two main components in why fall seedings fail. Those are human nature and Mother Nature. Whenever it comes to Mother Nature, there are things that we just can't control. Last year, for example, got really dry in the month of August and September. It was a terrible year for fall seedings, and there were several that didn't work. But there are also a couple things that are just human nature, things that we can control that maybe we're not doing great at managing. One of those things would be seeding too deep. Dave will say that generally you shouldn't have any deeper than 2 times the diameter of the seed. And a lot of times whenever I talk to producers, they're wanting to plant things 1 inch, 2 inches deep in the ground just because they think they need the water. But really, you're not giving that plant any time to grow. The other thing that people oftentimes mess up is improper seeding rates.
Calibrating your drill is a really important step in the process of getting ready to seed, and it's one that people skip all the time. Before you get your drill into the field and start using it, make sure that you review the owner's manual and you're familiar with all the pieces and parts and how they work. If you don't have access to the manual for your drill, you can often find PDF copies online, or you can request one from your equipment dealer. Clean and inspect your equipment before you begin. This is going to help make sure all your seed runs through the drill as expected. And then make sure you check all of those settings, as Dave pointed out in the video, to make sure that you're operating in the correct drive and you have your seed rate adjusted for that, that your seed cup is open the appropriate amount, and your presser wheels are set appropriately as well. Check the seeding rate based on the pure live seed in the bag that you have purchased, and also the germination rate. These can vary drastically depending on how the seed was harvested and the growing conditions that year. So specifically check before you begin, because those numbers can affect your seeding rate. You may need to increase the pounds per acre based on those numbers. Do the actual field test and check and make sure that the seed is feeding out of each seed cup and placed appropriately in the soil. And then make adjustments as necessary to make sure you achieve the correct rate and depth. Some things to gather together before you get started: an air compressor to clean out the equipment, a tire gauge, check that everything's where it's supposed to be before you get rolling, take a tape measure, a ruler, some pliers, as well as a handkerchief or a small bag, and a rubber band, a calculator, and if you have one, a scale that will measure in ounces. If you do not have a scale, there's some other ways that you can make assumptions about how much seed is feeding through the drill, but a scale is the most accurate and the easiest to use, in my opinion. To determine our test plot size, here's how we start. Remember that 1 acre is equivalent to 43,560 square feet. So that's the number that we're going to start with, because we need to come up with a unit that can be converted into acres. So we'll start with the square footage of an acre. And what we'll do then is divide that square footage by the width of the drill and get a number that's equivalent to the letter B in this case. And that's going to help us determine our conversion factor for taking our plot to the correct amount of seed per acre. So we'll divide then B by our plot length. It's going to give us our acreage multiplier. And this is all going to make sense when we put it into an example. So here's your algebra for the day. We're going to take 43,560 square feet divided by A, which is the drill width, to equal B. And then we will take B divided by the plot length, which is going to be a guess and check method depending on how long your tape measure is. And that's going to give us our acreage multiplier, which is the letter D. So let's do some math with an example. Let's assume that our drill is 7 feet wide. We'll take 43,560 divided by 7. That gives us 6,223. That's equal to our letter B from the equation above. And then we take that letter B and we divide it by our plot length. Really what I would do is whatever the length is of your tape measure, because that's going to be the easiest thing for you to mark. Sometimes this might be 50 feet, it could be 20 feet, but you do really want to get enough length on that plot that you have the drill actively moving through the plot. If you don't get enough length on the plot, you're not going to really get that seed moving through the lines. So I would make it 50 feet or longer if you have the ability. So when we do that math, we are going to assume in this case that our plot is 100 feet long. So what we're doing is a 7 foot by 100 foot plot. And our multiplier winds up being 62, equivalent to the letter D in this equation. And then we move on to check our seeding rate. The way we do that is we take our seed rate in pounds per acre and we divide it by that acreage multiplier, which was 62 on the previous slide. And that's going to give us the pounds of seed per pass. So as we drive through that 7 foot by 100 foot plot, this is how much seed we expect to come out onto the plot. So that's going to be the letter E, which is seed rate in pounds per acre, divided by D, our acreage multiplier, to equal amount of seed per pass. Let's assume our seeding rate is 50 pounds per acre. We divide it by that constant number, which is 62, and that's going to give us, I did round these, so if you check my math, it depends on how many decimal places you want to round to, but we get 0.8 pounds per pass, so just under 1 pound in that unit of area. And then we divide that number, that weight of seed per pass, by the number of seed cups in your drill. And this is going to tell us how much seed should come out per cup as we pass through that test plot. So we're taking the number from above, F, this is our pounds per pass, divided by the number of cups, and this is equal to how much we should get per cup or per line when we do our test. And in this case, to make it easy math, the drill I have done this example on before has 9 seed cups, but 10 is easier. So if we have 10 seed cups, this comes out to about 1/10 of a pound per cup per pass. If we convert that then to ounces, which you may want to do for ease of measurement with your scale, that comes out to 1.28 ounces. Once you get done with those calculations, it's always good to check your math. I would calculate this backwards to make sure that everything lines up the way you anticipated. So you'll take your pounds per cup per test pass, and in our example, that was 0.08 pounds or 1.28 ounces. Multiply that by the number of seed cups. So that's this equation here, H times G equals F. And then you have your 0.8 pounds per 100 foot by 7 foot test pass. So that's the amount of seed we expect to be in our test. That's equal to the letter E. And then we take that number by our constant acreage multiplier, 62, and we come up with 49.6 pounds per acre. That's pretty close, depending on how we round. And then actually go and do your field test. Mark the beginning and the end of your test plot so that you know where to start and stop. Position the drill so that you're able to drive straight through the plot. And then remove one coupler on the seed tube that you could see in the video with Dave working with the drill. You may need pliers to get that off if your drill is fairly new or people haven't frequently taken those off. You do want the coupler to be tight, so you may need pliers to take the coupler off. But remove that so that you can plug the seed tube. I find it easiest to do this with something that resembles a bag so you don't lose seed when you yank it back off of the tube, something that you can cinch the top of and keep the seed in the bag. So a handkerchief works well for this, or a fabric bag or a paper bag, and then secure it to the line with a rubber band so you can catch the seed flowing through that tube and then weigh it. And now you're ready to lower the drill and drive through into your test plot. Weigh the seed that you catch from the seed line and compare that to the expected amount of seed per cup per pass, and then adjust your seed cup opening if needed. Remember to check for seed placement in the soil. Use your ruler and make sure that that seed is placed at the appropriate depth, and adjust your presser wheels as needed to make sure that the depth is correct. If anything is not quite where you need it to be, continue to make adjustments and retest until the correct seeding rate and depth are achieved. This is going to wind up saving you time and money and frustration when you go to seed the rest of the field.
If any of you guys are interested in renting any of our rental equipment, please log on to our website, www.noble.osu.edu, and go to our equipment page. There it lists all the equipment that we have, the rates for rental, and also the tractor requirements for using it, because some of the equipment is heavy and really requires a higher horsepower tractor. Also, feel free to give us a call. The number here is 740-732-4318. Advice is free. Call your soil and water, because each has different policies on rental equipment and rental availability.
Thank you for watching. We hope that you've learned a lot about how to get ready to reseed pastures this fall. Dave and Jessie, thank you for joining me. If people need more information from you, how do they get in contact with you?
There's multiple ways you can get a hold of us. You can call us at the office here at Noble Soil and Water at 740-732-4318. We do both go out in the field, so we do have a machine. You can leave a message. We suggest you leave a message so we can call you back. Or you can get by us by email. It's just, you can go into our webpage at www.noble.osu.edu, and our emails are on there. You can send each of us an individual email or message us on Facebook.
We'll hope to see you next month on Forage Focus.